Well, hey guys, I just wanted to take the time here to talk about the raid in Lord of the Rings Home. This will be a little bit more of a scripted discussion, um, kind of just talking about warnings and, to be honest, how not to design a game. Um, this video might be a little harsh, but at the end of the day, this game basically lasted for not even a year, and I've stuck around this long until the shutdown, basically out of two things: just loyalty to the game. I think it's fun, and the other part is I love Lord of the Rings. There could be a Lord of the Rings themed game about watching paint dry, and if it was lore accurate, I would probably at least enjoy it a little bit. Let's watch the paint dry on this beige wall so the elves can awaken in Corvienne. Like, sign me up. But Lord of the Rings Home just did really missed on just basic game design, and I just want to talk about some of those things and just some caveats before we get into it. I just want to say, like, I'm not a game designer. I've never designed a game. I don't know the first thing about coding. Um, I also want to say I've never played a collector's game. I've never played MSF, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Home is the first game that I have played of this genre. So I can't, some of the things in the game might be more specific to a collector type game. And well, I don't have the expertise to be able to comment on that. But what I can comment is just my experience as a gamer. I have played other games and I enjoy games. And so I'm going to try to compare Home to games that I've enjoyed. Like, what did those games have? What did WoW have? What did RuneScape have? What did Diablo 3 have? What were aspects of those games that made me enjoy it, made me not want to pull my hair out when I was raiding? Well, most of the time. Like, we've all wiped on WoW, but just for basic gameplay, what did those games do that Home did not? Um, uh, the and just the big just up front here, that's basically how RNG is handled within the raid, how it's handled in rewards and how it's handled in the mechanics. And we'll get into a little bit more of that later, but that's the meat and potatoes of it. There's no one thing, like, there are other things in the raid that make it not fun or enjoyable. But the RNG, how that's handled, is the big one. And also, I want to say I have had some fun playing the raid, but it's been very short lived. When the raid was first announced, I was so excited. They did it correct. Mines of Moria is canonically or chronologically the correct big event to have. It happens right away in Fellowship or midway through Fellowship. It's the first dangerous thing that the Fellowship faces. You know, it's the correct thing. It's iconic, right? It's everyone knows about the Balrog fight. They made the correct decision in choosing Moria. And so when they announced a raid in Mines of Moria, I truly can't tell you how excited I was to, like, oh my gosh, all these characters that I've leveled up, all these characters that I've put gear and gold into, I've leveled their abilities, all these characters that I've theory crafted with, I get to bring them into a raid setting and, like, see how they perform, see how they work together. And that once we finally got the raid, that excitement just like, oh, this is it. And we'll get into that. It was fun playing with friends as well, I will say. Like, when the first chapters first released, like, there's the key. Like, first released, it was fun, like, going through, messing with the mechanics, seeing how high a score we can get, right? That was fun, like seeing the Balrog for the first time. Seeing the Balrog was incredible. They did, the troll looked like garbage, but the Balrog, they did 10 out of 10 job. Aesthetically, it looked nice. Mechanically, I thought it actually was pretty good. Um, but let's compare this. Let's compare this to RuneScape for a moment. If RuneScape, I've played RuneScape since 2004, and then off and on for a while. You never quit RuneScape. You just take long breaks, and I started up again OSRS in 2018 briefly. If RuneScape had a shutdown. If Jagex one day announced that, hey guys, we're cutting the RuneScape servers and we will never allow any private servers anywhere. We will press legal actions against anyone who does that. Like they said, oh, if in 2 weeks we're shutting down the RuneScape servers, talk to you later, bye. I would immediately be making 2 phone calls or talking to 2 people rather. One of them would be to my wife, and the other one would be to the person I'm working for doing construction and remodeling work now. And I would basically say, please don't divorce me and please don't fire me. But I'm going to be barricading myself in this room for the next 2 weeks. Please only talk to me in a case of emergency because I would be trying to play basically as much RuneScape and join as much RuneScape as I could before it went under. And I don't think I would be alone in that sentiment. I think there'd be many, many, many other people who would basically just be heartbroken and say, "Hey guys, let's enjoy this while we can." The fact that Home had 90+% of its player base leave when the shutdown was announced, even though there's still months left in the game, is a pretty damning piece of evidence for even though people were playing it, you can really says volumes. That speaks volumes about how much enjoyment actually was there. Um, Probably more addiction than enjoyment. And in my case, that's probably certainly true. Some fun, but more just like more addiction rather than just enjoying it. If this were a good game and it got shut down, you would have seen a lot more people stick around. Um, not this wasn't even my notes, but I guess just going off on a tangent, not having the raid, not having content at the start was really tough because there were so many people that got bored after not having any content for a few months of just grinding characters and then occasionally playing arena. And Mines of Moria really needed to hit hard to keep the player base around. And the fact that it was so the launch was so bad with how chapter one was just really put the nail in the coffin, I think, for player retention. I mean, there's other stuff, but other videos have covered that. Other content creators. I'm not going to go into it. I'm just here to talk about how the raid was handled and do's and don'ts from a player's perspective. And you guys can share your thoughts. RNG is not fun. And it's specifically how RNG was built into the Mines of Moria was not fun. When I got a score of 1.5 mil, for example, like in chapter 1 or 900k, I never felt, my response was never, oh wow, I did a really good job. I hope I can do that again. Wow, I really pulled through on that fight. My response was, oh, thank God I didn't get screwed over by random RNG this time. I didn't have 4 Skullcrushers spawn or 2 War Guards. Like the dice happened to fall in my favor, and that's not rewarding. You never truly got, I mean, you could do things improperly, but if you had just the bare basics down of how to do the raid, it all truly did come down to luck. My response was, thank God it's over. I can go do something I enjoy. This raid was not so much enjoyable as it was a chore that you had to do to get gold, to get gear to level up other characters, and to hopefully do something that you enjoy with those characters, or just get them big just because, well, it's a collector's game. Um, chapter one was chapter one is the biggest offender of this, but it occurs in all chapters how RNG was handled in the mechanics. Uh, chapter one, all the I think there were 6 orcs that potentially could have spawned. You could have replaced every orc spot with a 6-sided die, and it would have had no effect whatsoever on how chapter one was played. And this is post fixes on chapter one, where they actually added hard mechanics to way the bomber through. The prefix for it, chapter one, was probably the worst piece of gaming content I've ever played, as far as being frustrating and just not really enjoyable, because you just had no control. Like maybe the bomber will still throw at you at 80% or 8 or 9 stacks. That was just not fun. It was not rewarding. Okay, let's go through an example of this. Let's look at WoW. If WoW released a raid, let's call this raid Dark Pit, right? Okay, back up. We're gonna have to edit this out. Most of this raid consisted of having to reset constantly because of bad RNG. You never got to play the raid so much as you just kept going and going and going until you got the dice to land correctly and didn't have to reset anymore. Whether that was from just getting multiple skull crushers or multiple war guards in chapter 1, whether it was from just having to reset in chapter 2 because the troll is resisting all your banes and you can't just get him down in time before he starts pounding you. In chapter 3, you didn't have any control over how your characters were targeted, or you had limited control. It was random who they would target if you didn't have a taunt or provoke up. So it's like, okay, well, I need them to attack this character first, so then this can happen. And you would have to keep resetting chapter 3 until that character got hit. A good example of that is running elves. You either needed to have Eladin get attacked first, or if you were running Rivendell 4, you'd either need to have Eladin get attacked first or another non-Rivendell elf, so you could get immunity onto Eladin, basically, and then that gave you the survivability to get 1.5 mil in Chapter 3, because immunity on Eladin, he would soak up a whole bunch of potential captured stacks, and you would keep those dominoes from falling. Nothing but resets in this raid, and it was not very enjoyable. So let's pretend that WoW made a raid, and we're gonna call this raid the Dark Pit. This is a timed raid. You need to beat this raid in, let's say, less than 30 minutes to get the rewards from it. And there's 10 potential bosses that can spawn, right? And let's say that each boss takes about, 8 minutes to kill, right? You can kill each boss, clear the trash, and kill the boss in 8 minutes, right? So, and that's a pretty mediocre time, right? If you're super geared, you can crush it. But let's say 8 minutes is like you beat each boss in 8 minutes. You're under that 30-minute mark, and it's random. You beat one boss, you come up to a boss, and it's random. There's 10 bosses. Let's say that 3 of those bosses take 20 minutes to beat. Like, each one of those potential bosses now takes 20 minutes to beat. You get to that, you can kill it. Yeah, you can take 20 minutes and kill that boss, but why would you do it? There's no point. You need to exit, you need to get everyone out of the raid, you need to reset it. And yeah, one of those, what would be the point? That raid would be basically panned as the worst piece of all raiding content to ever exist, because you can see it. Like, you think about the scenario, like, well, that's not fun. I don't want to get 2 bosses deep, get to the 3rd boss, and then suddenly, like, oh gosh, it's Zilmok, the Butthole Destroyer. Well, now we need to get out and reset, or it's Gorth, the Destroyer of My Happiness. Well, everyone, he takes 20 minutes to beat. Time to get out and reset the raid and restart, and hopefully we don't get one of the 30% chance, 3 out of 7, 10 bosses to just completely just ruin our day. That's how chapter 1 was. But the other chapters had that problem. Chapter 4, not as much. The Balrog needed to be strong. I don't really have a way to critique the Balrog very much. You couldn't have him be chumpy. Some RNG is needed. I don't want to say you don't just want to have a piece of gaming content either, where you just hit auto on it, because that's not fun. You're making this game for people to enjoy, to engage with. So there's a ditch on either side. Barrels, it's not as noticeable, but if you do barrels, for example, in RuneScape, you kill 6 brothers, and it's completely random which brother is going to be in the bottom parts of the crypt versus in the crypts of the surface. It's not normally, unless you're super low level, it's not normal. It doesn't change much, but it's an element of randomness. You pop into a crypt. I don't know if there's going to be a brother that comes out, or if it's going to be the little track that goes down into the deeper parts of the crypt there. WoW bosses in raid. WoW bosses also have random abilities, and these are not so game breaking where you need to reset. But Kel'Thuzad in Naxxramas, the way his frost ability works is he randomly targets a person, and now that person has to make a decision, and the people around him have to make a decision based off of how that randomness is. It's not an ability where Kel'Thuzad every 2 minutes has a table where he rolls from, and one of those abilities wipes the entire raid. That's not good game design. The RNG needs to be something that you can work around and work with. and take into consideration. And maybe some mechanics are slightly more punishing than others, but just having it be so, well, I got this situation, there's no hope, time to exit and try again and hope for better luck. Luck is not a fun part of gaming if it's all that there is. Um, just as an aside, I think the orcs were too strong. It felt really bad to have an orc that just threw a freaking frag grenade into my elves and just I watched them die. Like that, I get it. We're in the Mines of Moria. It needs to be dangerous. I'm not saying you need to face. Well, the orcs needed to be a little bit chumpier, I think, and they level 5. You couldn't even do level 5. At least I couldn't. Um, it felt like it would have been neat to see the characters that I've built up and poured so many resources into not get steamrolled by just trash by orcs. That was tough with the capture mechanics and with the bomb. It it didn't feel good. Like they could have designed it differently in a way where you had not one-shot mechanics, not true damage, but just a constant stream of orcs that you had to fight through until you got to some form of objective. And we'll get into maybe some redesign or ideas later. Um, Another thing is chapter 2. Let us kill the troll. Let me actually kill him, not topple him, not knock him over so he can like nurse his boo-boos and get back up, and then like watch him die in a cutscene. Make it a raid encounter. Like, let me actually just take him from 100% to 0%, and that's the end of it. No grinding for points. I'm not here to grind points. I'm here to interact with the characters. I'm here to interact with the troll and try to kill him. It it felt like this weird pinball game almost, where I wasn't even interacting with Moria as much as I was just interacting with these points, trying to get a high score, and it didn't make it didn't make a lot of sense the way that was handled. Um, but having RNG be such a heavy factor in mechanics was bad. It does not make for good gameplay. So they put RNG into the game mechanics, and then to make matters worse, where you actually want more RNG than not is in the rewards. And there was no RNG in the rewards because we're doing all this grinding. We're playing the same raid over and over. We're rolling the dice. And the worst part is we already know what we're getting for rewards. That anticipation when like I've done a few hundred barrels runs, by no means an expert, but I'm telling you that anticipation of just doing a barrels run, killing the sixth brother, and something it's different from game to game. Sometimes it lasts a minute, sometimes it's just that split second. But right before you loot that barrels chest, before you open it, when you're playing Diablo 3 and you kill the Rift Guardian, right? Or the Rift boss and loot explodes everywhere. That split second of, oh, I wonder what I'm gonna get. I wonder what's going to be inside that barrel's chest. When you kill the boss and like what you go up to loot it, that split second, I wonder what he dropped. I wonder if he got that, if I'm going to get that piece of gear, the set piece that I need. I wonder if one of my teammates is going to get it. That anticipation, that quick dopamine click, whatever that is, was non-existent in this raid. Not only are you grinding this game, you don't have that, I wonder what's going to be in here. There was no wonder. There was no. That's just it. There was no wonder, no curiosity of what's in the box. What could we do? And I'm not saying there's a wrong way to do that too. I mean, loot boxes exist for a reason. You know, they're predatory and they suck. Um, Having both set and random rewards would have been an excellent way to do this. Like have and you could do probably both. Do a team wide type set rewards and then a random, a roll on the drop table, so to speak, of different team, or I should say, guild wide rewards. And you could do that individually too. You have your set progression. I do like the progression path, by the way. That was really nice on the individual level to be able to grind out scores. That was fun. You could also have some individual random loot. You could do extra gold. Glyph rerolls. Maybe you have kind of a pretty rare item that lets you re-roll or even choose a primary or secondary stat on a glyph. let's say you have a Bloodlust glyph that's level 5, right? Or yeah, level 5, and it has all damage on it, but it has a defensive primary stat. Maybe you have a glyph that lets you turn that into a damage stat, and now you've got your unicorn glyph that you've been looking for. You could have one for the secondaries as well. Maybe you just have that one ability that's off. You're 3 out of 4, but you got that defensive one on there. Maybe you get to choose, like, oh, I want damage on there, or crit chance. And the reverse goes for tanking, right? Maybe you have this amazing tank glyph, but it's a damage-based one, so you're not going to put that on your tank. Wild card character shards could be another random thing. These are platinum shards that can be converted into any non-legendary character. Like, hey, now you can free to Beb with these wild character shards, or Halbrand and stuff like that. Purple gear would be another one. It's locked. Most people don't have a lot of gems lying around. Having extra purple gear that drops, like the essence I'm talking about in particular, the hearts and swords and shields and everything like that, have those be a potential random drop. Epic ability materials. Oh my God, can you imagine, like, if you just got an epic ability material, like a thing of 20 of them from a guild-wide chest, everyone gets it. Talk about a hype train. My goodness. And another idea for random gear, or random loot, I should say, is maybe you have, and this kind of ties into what glyphs do, but maybe you have a slot that is an epic ability upgrade. Maybe this thing plugs into a slot, and now that character's basic attack does 20% more damage. Maybe it plugs into a special 1 slot where it recharges 1 stamina at the start of the fight. Something like that. It's an ability upgrade, more damage, more mitigation, who knows, but something where you're chasing that really neat piece of gear. And again, we're talking about EA not being punishing with loot drops, but making it incredible enough to where it's really nice to get one, but not so punishing where you might see one if you play for 2 years. That's too much. That's the wrong way to do it. But having those rewards be random would just do so much, because that anticipation was completely lacking. Those are the 2 biggest things. Is the RNG was exactly where it shouldn't have been, and it was non-existent where it should have been. That is, in the mechanics of how you play the game, and then for the rewards themselves. Let's talk about some ideas. I said earlier that I was so excited for Moria to come out, and that was short-lived. And one big part of that is we are just sitting in a single room with endless waves coming at us. Let us actually explore Moria. Let us have to almost choose a path, as it were, trying to find our way out, or trying to find our way into the Chamber of Mazerbool to go fight the troll, right? We don't know how to get there. Diablo 3 uses randomness like this in their map generation. And I realize as I'm saying this, we're getting a little bit away from the collector genre into more of like a dungeon crawler, or even a raid type setting, like, with RuneScape or World of Warcraft. But again, that's kind of how they sold it to us. They called it a raid. We're going to raid in the Mines of Moria with our guild, with 36 other people. And sitting in one room, having everything come to us, with us not being able to move, and with us not really being able to kill anything either in a meaningful way. It didn't feel adventurous. It felt very claustrophobic. And the template already exists to make this work, as far as how the campaigns, right? Maybe you're looking at a map, and there's 3 different rooms you can choose from. Click on room 1, and now there's that cutscene of your characters running into the room, and you have to kill all the orcs there. And maybe that room is a dead end, or maybe it goes on, and you have to kind of find your way through this maze of rooms, clearing trash. And hey, guess what? Maybe there's little boxes you can click on to, like, look for stuff, look for gear. That exploration, that curiosity, that wonder of, oh, I wonder what's over here, I wonder what's in that box, that was also non-existent. Blackrock Depths. There's a video talking about why Blackrock Depths in Vanilla WoW was the greatest dungeon that's ever been made. And I would agree with that sentiment. And one of the leading intros he starts off with is when you walk into Blackrock Depths, you're looking around, and one of the first things you see is this locked door off to your side. You can't unlock it, but it's there, and you don't know what's behind it. And that's so clever. It's such good game design because you're walking to this foreign place, and there's this path that you can't follow, but you know it goes somewhere. And the only thing you can think about is, I wonder where that path goes. Mines of Moria really needed something like that in a very bad way. Um, to be able to explore, to be able to wonder what's over here, what's over there. And again, you don't have to make this like super torturous for escaping, but make it fun enough to where it's replayable. Make it actually a raid. Maybe when you kill orcs, you get character XP versus how much damage they do, and you could scale the difficulty up and down. But let us not just sit in one room and grind points. Let it be based on the things that we kill, right? Um, Make it actually a boss encounter. Have the raid be you clear orcs until you find the troll, and then that troll is the first boss encounter, and you have to 100 to 0 to him, or 100 get him 100 to 0 to win, right? And then maybe the troll drops, just gives out random loot, right, on an individual or raid wide or guild wide level, and then part 2 or even part 3 is clearing through the orcs again to finally get to the Balrog, which is the second boss fight. And even as I'm talking about this, I'm like, oh, I would play this game. And as the devs design this, I'm kind of wondering if they even play tested some of these ideas, because people who play people who make RuneScape also play RuneScape. At least Mod Ash, used to. I don't know if he's still there. Vanilla WoW, that was certainly the case. But this raid was not replayable because we were doing the same things over and over and over and over and over and over with no variance, without any sense of exploration, without, oh, this is a different type of map before. I wonder where this path goes. I'm level 100 in RuneScape. I've seen level 120 pluses still running barrows. Um, and they do that because it's fun. I do it because that's fun. That's kind of one of the main things I still do in RuneScape is if I just want to chill out for an evening, I'll hop onto RuneScape for a half hour, 40 minutes or however long, and I'll just knock out half a dozen, maybe 10 even barrels runs, just see what I can get. And I think the fact that such higher geared players who should, by all accounts, be doing in-game content, in-game rating, it's going to pay 4 times as much in terms of gold per hour as barrels does. I still see so many high-level players doing barrels because, while yes, it is rewarding, it's also fun. And at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do, is to have fun. So for those of you still listening, whether or not you make games or do anything, I just reflect on this. If you're making a game, is it a game that you would enjoy playing? Can you see yourself playing it? Or are you just making something hoping that others will get addicted to it or enjoy it? And it doesn't even have to play, and that doesn't even have to apply to game design. If you're a cook, if you're designing apps, if you are playing music, okay, well, I'm creating this, but is this something that I myself would enjoy? Because if you don't like it, odds are other people won't as well. So those are my quick pointers. Wow, half hour. Time flies when you're having fun. Well, let me know. Thank you for spending some time here with me. Those are my thoughts on the raid, the problems with it, the issues with it, and potential fixes. And I will bid you all a very fond farewell. Goodbye.